Welcome to Beyond the Frame, episode 11, a podcast where we dive deeper into the professional lives of an esports creative. I'm your host, Mario Prosperino, co-founder of ESPAT. And today we are in Chicago with Max Chan and Minnesota with Owen Roe. Owen Roe. Sorry about that, Owen.
No worries.
It's my first episode. I'm a little nervous. Apologize. Super. Hey, guys. Thanks for jumping on. Really appreciate it. Let's kick it off. Tell me more about where you guys started. I know you're both young professionals in this industry. I'll start off with Max. Give me an idea as far as like your upbringing, how gaming played a role with you coming up. What kind of kid were you and where you are now professionally?
All right. So I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, northwest suburbs to be exact. I've lived in and around the Chicago area my entire life. In terms of gaming, I wasn't a huge gamer when I was younger. That didn't really start until I got a little older, like 12, 13. I kind of got into like Call of Duty and stuff at a younger age. I played like some Pokemon too, but other from that, I never really played a lot of like single player games. But I was really big into Call of Duty. I love competitive games. I love like being competitive. I love winning. And so naturally that kind of led me to, the gaming scene and stuff. And growing up, I played baseball. So I'm a big sports fan. Love sports, love gaming, love traveling, everything like that. I kind of started doing like back in the day when sniping and trick shotting was a big thing. I used to like make montages and I would like edit montages and stuff like that. And, that was just something I do on my free time. And it kind of, I transitioned over to, I wanted to take it more serious. I wanted to do something more than just doing these free videos for people that I didn't really get much out of. And so in probably like 2016, I've pretty much fully transitioned from doing those type of montages and stuff to trying to get into esports, doing stuff like simple video editing, motion graphics. And that's kind of like when I really got first introduced to esports. And I kind of realized, this is a scene that it has a lot of potential. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of people here that are just like me. They enjoy doing this. And so started making some friends, started making some connections, and just started pretty much growing from there.
Super. And we'll get to your professional status in a moment. Owen, tell me more about your upbringing and how gaming had an influence for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, obviously I grew up in Minnesota. There's not a whole lot going on here. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of this place. I kind of just sit inside all day at this point, as I always have. There's not a whole lot to do in my town. So I think naturally it made sense for me to be drawn towards like computers and stuff. My whole life I've been playing like just video games like Roblox and Minecraft. And I actually kind of credit those two games to getting me into designing, because I remember I would play like Roblox on my dad's laptop, and you can make like shirts and stuff on there. And so that's what I was doing. I was like making these really ugly, horrible shirts for my Roblox character to wear. But the important thing was that it got me into something that I could capitalize on down the line. And so I did that for a while until like halfway through middle school, which is really funny. I started designing in esports towards the end of like 7th grade. Right now I'm a senior in high school, but it was, I think, the summer between 7th and 8th grade when I made. So what's kind of interesting about how I joined the esports scene is that for me, there wasn't like a clear gateway into it. Like I feel like a lot of people just, they're playing a game and they have friends in the scene, and it just naturally kind of evolves into working in esports. Like with Max, it was Call of Duty, and that's a story I hear a lot. But with me, it's like I made like a conscious effort to move into esports because I realized, okay, well, I can make something from this, and I want to do something beyond just being part of a community. I want to be part of a meaningful community. And in my mind, esports, it had a thriving graphics scene. It had a lot of room for growth. It had all this talent, and it just made sense. And I had a friend in there it was actually a friend of a friend who I increasingly became friends with, and it was over time it became clear like this is where I meant to be, and so I just took that chance. I pretty much went all into esports designing, and in eighth grade, I remember it was my birthday in eighth grade, March 5th. I joined my first big org, which was Epsilon Esports, which at the time was like tier 2 or something. They're like a French team. They don't really have much of a presence anymore. But back then, to me, this was like awesome. I'm in eighth grade. I did this. And looking back on it now, it's still pretty awesome. I wasn't getting paid or anything, but it was it was part of the ladder. I was climbing my way up through the world. And so,
but Owen, I got to ask, like, man, at what point do your parents kind of peek in your room and say, "What the hell is going on? Are you doing your homework? Like, how about how about a paper route if they still exist?" But seriously, like, at what point do your parents really start asking you, like, what are you doing, and is this a viable career path?
Yeah, for sure. I like this question because it's something that I don't really think about. Because to me, my parents, I don't want to say they're not like present, but they're like the opposite of helicopter parents.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I actually think it's good because I was like raised in such a way where I'm very self-reliant. Like if I need something done, it's basically up to me to get it done. And so, I mean, joining esports is just like a form of that, I think. And I mean, yeah, they didn't. I was actually doing pretty badly in school. I've always hated school. Man. I like almost flunked out of 7th grade, which is impressive to do. That's middle school. I mean, I was not trying. I hated it. I still hate school. There have been some improvements in that department, as in I do my work to the point where I can graduate, which is always good. But that's actually partly why I started designing, was because I hated school so much, and they were always like, "Oh, and you gotta do something about this, man." And obviously I did. But to me, designing was a way to hone my skills and do something important beyond just what was expected of me. It was, I guess I was just carving my own path. Because I didn't want to, I mean, honestly, I have no interest in pursuing the traditional go through school route. And to me, I mean, it's clearly paying off. So I think I made the right choice.
So I imagine, like, when you're sitting there in a biology class or chemistry, you're just completely bored. If I had to look at your notepad, I mean, you're probably scribbling like the best of them, right?
Oh yeah, no, I'm literally that's what I would do. Luckily, with COVID, I don't have to physically show up to school anymore.
Yeah,
which is always good. I can just work and pretend to listen in class now. But I don't want to totally discredit school either, because I think there is a legitimate. I think what's really important is the social component, which, I mean, in middle school, I definitely wasn't taking advantage of that. But when I got into high school, that kind of switched around. So I think in terms of that, school, in my eyes, is a success. But I mean, that's really the only real utility it offers to me.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, I mean, all kidding aside, school, we're finding out now through this pandemic that it's really kind of hurting some of the kids mentally and emotionally. So, there's a high priority for these kids to get back in school. Max, let me turn it to you. Tell me how you've been juggling, chasing a profession in this space, but also juggling school as well.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely right now it helps that everything's online, because there's definitely a lot more time that I can be home and working, as opposed to, if all classes are in person, then I have to go to class. In Chicago, I go to school and live in Chicago, and I don't live like directly like in the Loop, which is the main part of downtown. I live kind of in like a neighborhood that's on the north side. And so most of my classes, we have like a Loop campus, and most of my classes are normally down there. So I would have to take the train, which is like a 15-minute train ride, and then I have classes in the Loop for a couple hours, and then I have to come back. And in total, by the time I get back, sometimes it would be like 5-6 p.m. But now I wake up, maybe I have like one Zoom class a day, and other from that, work out, get some work done. But I have so much more time that I can just dedicate to getting work done. with these online classes that it's really helpful, even though I honestly would prefer in-person classes because I really miss the social aspect and stuff.
Sure.
But I do like also realize that it's helping me with having a lot more time to work. And I think a lot of people, especially younger kids our age, have the issue of trying to balance, like, oh, I really want to pursue something something in esports, but I still have school full time. And honestly, it's really hard to give like a correct answer as to what you do, because everyone, people have different priorities. Some parents are a lot more, you got to go to college, you got to get a degree in this. And then other parents are more, we trust that you can make this decision. So, you don't necessarily have to go to college and stuff like that. So I think for a lot of people that kind of struggle with that issue of trying to balance the two, the best advice I can really give is just like time management. That's helped me a lot, like figuring out how long it's going to take me to do something, how long it normally takes me, and then trying to balance that out with everything else that I want to do in a day, because I don't want to sit on my computer all day. As much as I love doing what I do, I don't want to sit here all day. I want to go out, I want to spend time with my roommates, I want to go do other stuff. And so it's kind of just a thing, like, I guess, like almost like trial and error. Like you figure out what works, what doesn't work. Sometimes, you have long nights where you got to stay up and get work done or do homework, and other times it's a lot simple, a lot more simple. But it's definitely been difficult, but I think I'm handling it pretty well for how I've been going, and I'm not like super stressed or anything, which is, I'm pretty glad that that's not an issue. So yeah.
Super. And so tell us more about the journey that got you to Spacestation Gaming. Relationship wise, how did you land there? Was it pretty warm? Was it warm? Was it cold? How did you actually get to that org?
For sure. So I joined Space Station pretty late in 2020. One of my friends who got a job with Space Station previously that year, he was Stephen Halfin. He's talking about how they needed like a video editor, someone to do like motion graphics and stuff. And he's like, this is exactly like what you do is exactly what you need. So he's like, do you want to interview? And I'm like, sure. So, he got me an interview with his boss. It went really well, and they hired me. And I just want to point out that I don't think I would have gotten that job if it wasn't for that connection that I had, that friend that I made with Steven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, I just want to say, like, connections, or, talk about this more later, but connections are just so integral to success in this industry. I'll see a lot of people that say, connections shouldn't matter as much as your skill. But I can agree with that to a point, but sometimes I also beg to differ. I think having the ability to talk to people, to make friends, to, market yourself, whatever you want to call it, is so important, because there's so many people in this industry that do the exact same thing that I do skill-wise, that do motion graphics and video editing. And for every single person that does something, there's multiple other people that do the same thing. So you have to figure out how to stand out. And one way to stand out is through marketing yourself, through making connections, through like meeting people and stuff and talking. And that so much of my success has been like, I can attribute to like the connections that I've made and stuff like that. So that's why I think it's one of like the most important things of being successful, especially in esports.
Absolutely. And we're going to touch on social media in a bit as well. Owen, back to you. Tell me the story, or tell us a story about how you got to EG. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And obviously you're not based out of their headquarters. And tell me, like, if there's any challenges that you're seeing from where you live versus where they're based out of.
Yes, I mean, I got to EG. It's not a very glamorous story, but I mean, I suppose it does highlight the importance of social media, because I literally, they needed a designer. They put a tweet out. It came across my timeline. I applied, and I got the job. It was as simple as that. I literally had no connections there, which is pretty rare for my resume. Like usually every client I get or every organization I join, there's usually something there. But EG was unique in the sense that I basically I did it the old-fashioned way. But if I do wonder sometimes, if I had never seen that tweet, where would I be right now? So I guess it was important I was on Twitter that day. Because I mean, honestly, EG so far has basically been the best org experience of my life. And the people I met there too, they're some of the best talent in the scene. I really like the EG guys. My old boss, Kevin, I've talked about him before. He's the best. I know Max has heard this a million times too. And other people there, like Sabby, she's great. Nicole's great. I love everybody at EG. And those connections, I can only imagine, are going to increase in value as time goes on. So I'm very thankful I got that position. But in terms of working remotely, obviously I live in Minnesota and they're based out of Seattle. So, I mean, it's not as challenging as you'd expect, actually. It helps that COVID's going on. So there's a lot of infrastructure for working remotely now. Honestly, kind of came at the best time, which is kind of not great to say, but to some degree it did aid my position a little bit. And obviously not having school enabled me to take on a bigger role than I otherwise would have had. And I mean, we basically just coordinate through Slack. It's nothing crazy. We have an Asana thing, Asana and Slack. It gets the job done, you know?
Tell me more about the EG brand and the branding behind it. How much involvement have you had thus far? What do you like about it? And what do you like about other orgs, you know, mixing it up? Obviously, this is the time of the year where kits come out and also the rebranding of other orgs. You know, who are you a fan of as far as other designers in the industry as well? But first off, on EG, like, tell me more about what the EG brand stands for, and you know, what do you like about it?
For sure. So, obviously, EG has gone through a few revisions in the last couple years. We've switched logos twice in like a year span. I wasn't around for the first logo change, the one that everyone didn't like. And it's funny because I actually tweeted like, God, what were they thinking? This is awful.
Delete.
Yeah. And then later on, I would end up joining the team and helping on the second rebrand, which, to be honest, that's such an awesome opportunity. I'm so happy I got that. And I can't take credit for the second rebrand in terms of like the logo and the brand messaging and stuff. That was all Kevin's doing. Kevin, honestly, I think he did a fantastic job. Some people still don't like the second rebrand, but at least in my eyes, I think it's a return to form. And I think a lot of people also agree with me. And at the very least, we can all agree that it's much better than the initial rebrand. So I think really what the EG brand represents, we had this big, it's kind of different now because we had a different art director and creative director come in. So the brand messaging is kind of changing as time goes on. But it's the word we use to describe it back when I first joined was like anti-hero. So it's like kind of like cocky and mean and competitive, of course, within acceptable limits. And it's kind of funny with sponsors and stuff. You really got to be careful with a name like Evil Geniuses. So it's very tricky balance to position the brand in such a way where it's like not a negative connotation. I think what EG is really going for now is to like make it, we're going in like a cooler direction with it, not so much like a evil direction, or we're redefining what evil means in the context of Evil Geniuses. Like we want to own that word within the scene, basically. And I mean, of course, that's subject to change. I don't want to speak on behalf of like, you know, the creative director and all that. Yeah. But
how far does it go up the ranks? Does Nicole have to put her final stamp on it once anything is being revised on logos and branding?
Yeah, I mean, it basically goes through all tiers of management. I think it even goes beyond Nicole. Like if we're changing the logo, because EG is owned by Peak Six, which is like an investment firm, or a holding company, something along those lines. Don't take my word for it. But I think I'm not sure how that works beyond Nicole, because that's like a whole different like chain of command. But I do know that their say is probably like the highest level. So I think Nicole probably signs off, but I want to say that Peak Six itself probably checks it out. I'm not entirely sure.
Sure. Max, what about you? Tell me more about the culture at Space Station. Have you gotten to know and meet Sean yet, and what the leadership and culture is like?
So I absolutely love the culture at SSG. This is the first big org that I've worked with, so I can't really speak on how it is for other orgs, but it legitimately feels like a family. Like the first week I was there, everyone was so welcoming, everyone was so nice. It's such like a chill environment, and it like literally just reminds me of like a big group of friends that are all working together. It's absolutely fantastic. I talk about this all the time. When I first got the job, my mom, she was asking me questions. She's like, so it's like a corporate environment. I'm like, not at all. Like it's not what you think. Like, we all communicate with each other. It's super it's like, we have a good time. We get our work done and stuff like that. And that's something that is going to make me stick with the team for, as long as possible. Like I've just had, even like the short amount of time I've been there, like the past 4 months, everyone has been so nice. Sean Durst, he is such an awesome guy. In our weekly meetings, he's always super like outspoken, and he's always, he's trying to motivate everyone. He's really great at doing that. But yeah, the culture is just something that I really hope it's something that's, more present in esports in the future. Because I know, a lot of these teams are owned by these holding companies who do have a more traditional like corporate structure. But I just hope that, this kind of more, because, this scene is still super new, compared to like, like the sports industry or stuff like that. The esports is super new. So I hope that we can kind of like develop like a new culture in terms of how things are structured. Just because I love everyone that, I work with and stuff like that. It's super, I don't know, I'm kind of just rambling here just because I just love the brand so much. But yeah, everyone's super nice. The culture is super, like, even when we have new hires, it just comes in super smoothly. They feel so welcome. Everything I love about the brand. And I think that's something else that's really awesome that we do is when you look at a lot of esports teams, they post a lot of graphics for every single match they do. They have like a scoreboard. They have like, we won, we lost, stuff like that. If you look at our Twitter page, we literally do not do any of that. We do for all of our matches. We try to do memes. We do highlight videos. We do like pre-games. And that's something that I really like about our brand. It's definitely less traditional.
Sure.
In the esports, most teams, they just post a bunch of graphics, but we try to get more involved with our community. We try to seem like, more fun and stuff like that. And I think that definitely helps with like our interactions and our engagement, because people kind of get tired. People don't really have a reason to interact when they see a team post a scoreboard or, we beat this team or we lost to this team. But when you post a meme with context and meaning behind it, where the community likes it, they can laugh at that. You beat back and forth, kind of beef with other orgs and stuff like that. The fans absolutely love that. And I think that that's a huge part of why we've been so successful on the social end, is because we kind of try to do things differently. We don't really follow like the main structure of graphics. Some people could kind of see that as, not being super professional, but I think that.
But you're building a fan base, so like,
yeah, exactly.
So SSG has not been around for 20 years, so that you don't have a loyal fan base.
Yeah,
that's going to follow you through thick and thin. If humor and memes and GIFs is a way of actually just curating a new fan base, that's what we're all tasked with, not just you guys, but EG as well. So yeah, I can really appreciate any social media manager or social team really just, I'm on Twitter every day like you guys, and when I see something funny, like it'll gravitate me more towards that org or that brand.
Mm-hmm.
Max, do you foresee yourself eventually traveling with the teams, and will you be aligned with specific teams under the org umbrella?
Hopefully sometime this year, we'll get to have LANs back. I would absolutely love to go out to LANs and help with filming and stuff like that. We actually have, one of our video editors, he's our main videographer. So, in the past, for like our main like R6 events, he's gone out to the team house and he's, shot with them and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I definitely would love to travel in the next couple months. Me and a couple of the other remote workers were planning on going to visit the offices out in Utah. But I definitely want to like, travel with the team, and when we go to events, be there, be with everyone, because it just seems like a super fun environment. Events themselves are super fun, but when you're going with like your organization, with your team, and you get to see everyone, I feel like that just adds a whole nother level to like the excitement that you have of going to like an actual LAN event.
Absolutely. Let's get back to social media, and I got to call you guys out because I was just really impressed with the numbers you guys have. You guys don't have rookie numbers when it comes to Twitter accounts. So I don't know if these are like, friends going back to third grade and they just said, let's follow Max and Owen. But you guys have like, combined like over 25,000 Twitter followers, and I haven't even gotten to your other social channels. But, how do you guys actually manage your socials? What has it meant for you? I'll start with Owen. How do you get to those numbers? Like, who are these people? Are you obviously they're fans of your work? Do you think your age actually has, puts you in an advantage when it comes to actually socializing and actually creating a following?
I mean, the age question is interesting because, believe it or not, I actually hid my age for a long time, which I suppose isn't totally unsurprising. Even up till like, I don't know when I publicly told people I was 17. Well, I guess I would have been like 15 or 16 when it happened, but I had already been in the scene for like a couple years at least since then. So I think maybe the bulk of my following was created before I even said anything. It kind of like switches out sometimes. My following has been like updating as time goes on. Like previously, my main demographic was just normal designers who were at like the mid-tier level. But I think now as time goes on, it's going more into actual like industry people, which are much like higher value followers to have. But I mean, really, I think it boils down to, at least for me, it probably helps that I'm pretty opinionated. And I think that's hard to argue with. So to some degree, I've become like a voice in the design community. I don't want to sit here and toot my own horn or anything. That's like not my goal here. But I think along with Max as well, I think we're both somewhat kind of authorities, or at least increasingly so. And obviously that's not without some degree of controversy between other designers. But to be honest, all publicity is good publicity. So it kind of just, I don't know. Yeah. And as time goes on too, I've been less worried about, like, I used to be super concerned with tweeting the right things to maximize the numbers and all that. But in the last year or so, I just really don't care. I put out what I want to put out now. And if they can like it or they can't, it's not my problem anymore. I've decided, like it is my platform. It is my responsibility, of course. But at the end of the day, what matters more to me now is getting higher value followers instead of more followers. And I think that actually has helped me also get more followers. Because previously, I mean, if you just put out like impression farming tweets, obviously there's not going to be a lot of personality in there. I think this shouldn't come as a surprise to say, but I think people like personality when they follow someone.
The bottom line, in my opinion, is that in social, there's a behavior, and if people see you guys with your space station and EG pom poms 24/7, believe it or not, you'll lose followers.
Mm-hmm.
They really want to hear from you, and if somebody comes out with a new logo, I'm going to turn to Owen and say, Owen, what do you think about this logo? And I want you to be pretty much upfront. If it sucks, tell me it sucks. If you love it, tell me you love it. But I think if you just kind of play it safe, people will just kind of dismiss you on any social channel. And, we're coming to you for your opinion. And there's certain things when things get announced in our industry, there's different kind of buckets of people that you kind of look upon for their opinion. And they don't play it safe in this industry, in which this reason why I love this industry in itself. But like I said, yeah, I think you have it down right. I think Max is the same, kind of has the same Twitter game and the same social game. What do you guys make of Instagram? Do you guys use it often or not, or is it not as vocal as Twitter for you guys? Max?
Not really. I have my own personal Instagram account, and then I have like my photography account, which I don't really post on that much, and that's kind of because I not a huge fan of Instagram. I think the algorithm is busted. A lot of people think the same thing. It's really hard to gain a following if you don't already have one, and when you put out a new post, it's really hard to it's hard to have it like pushed to other people's feeds if you don't pay for promotions, or if you don't already have a large fan base that will share it. And that's why I like Twitter so much, because with Twitter it's so easy. I mean, it's not so easy, but it's a lot easier to like go viral simply because of like the retweet button.
Sure.
Like, when you retweet something on Twitter, that goes on the timeline of every single person that follows you. And there isn't really anything like that with Instagram. You can share it to your story, but not everyone looks at stories. But pretty much everyone on Twitter, you look at your timeline. That's why you're on Twitter. So it's a lot easier to gain a following and to build a community on Twitter, I found, than it is on Instagram. And that's why I still do use Instagram sometimes, but it's definitely not like my main priority at all. And I wouldn't really care, honestly, if Instagram got wiped off the face of this earth. Like I said, it's not a huge priority to me. I don't really care about it, but yeah.
And you'll see, obviously, when we get back to LAN, the excitement of seeing people's work. Like, you could be literally in LA shooting an event, and somebody's in Berlin shooting a league event, and just the massive information and assets that are being circulated on your timeline, and people kind of celebrating everybody's work. And not just that, but also like, I enjoy seeing, just creatives hanging out and posting a picture, in the hotel lobby, or, in their travels. And, you're seeing creatives from around the world converge to a single city in a single venue. And quite frankly, they probably met over Twitter, and now they're literally just, meeting, face to face. So that's one of the things, obviously, with 2020, we just, we dearly miss. Owen, tell me about some of the friendships you've made on Twitter, and, whether these are folks that do the same exact thing that you do, or more, kind of grip and grin, camera professionals.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, if Twitter didn't exist, I literally do not know what my life would look like. I mean, it would be unrecognizable. I've been on Twitter since like 2012. I was like 9 years old when I made an account. I shouldn't have had one, okay? But yeah, I'm lucky I did, okay? Because my life has completely changed. It created a career for me. It gave me all these connections. People don't like Twitter a lot. Well, I guess it depends on who you ask, but people at my school, they don't use Twitter. I go on Reddit, and whenever Twitter comes up, they're always shitting on it. They think it's horrible.
Sure.
But personally, I'm of the opinion that Twitter's the best social media. And it's really because of the communities that are created on there. It's unlike any other platform I've ever used. Something like Instagram, it's kind of like you're just shouting into the void. Like, you'll get comments and you'll get likes and all that, but you're not really like engaging with people in the same way that Twitter facilitates. Because, I mean, when you think like the esports community, pretty much all of that happens on Twitter. You could even say, I guess, like Twitch and YouTube to some degree, but mostly Twitter. That's where the conversation happens. And there's a reason there's no conversation happening on Instagram. Usually it's people talking about Instagram on Twitter. So, I mean, honestly, and I've met like my closest friends on Twitter. I've met everyone on Twitter. I don't even really care about my real life friends as much as I care about my Twitter friends at this point. Like, that sounds extreme, but when you think about it, it's like I go to school, and these are like goober high schoolers, they're like smoking weed. Nothing wrong with that, of course. I mean, that's just all they're doing. That's all they're doing. They're just smoking weed. They're
being kids. Yep.
Yeah, they're just being kids. Nothing wrong with that too. I want to make that clear. There's a time for indulging in everything. But if that's all you're doing, then I find it hard to mesh with that crowd. I always got to have something going on in my life. I'm big on continuous improvement, and Twitter is a means of doing so.
And it's the shortest, gap between an opportunity. So quite frankly, I reach out to Max. Hey, Max, love for you to jump on the pod. Anybody else in mind? And what he does is basically just tag you in the DM, and it allows me to literally kind of scrape your profile. And what I'll do is I'll go through, kind of what you've been posting, then it'll take me to your personal website. I'll look at your work. I'll look at some of the stuff you posted a couple of months ago, for better or for worse, and but also allows me to kind of get a sense as far as who you are, your DNA, your makeup. Maybe you've commented on other people's rebranding in the past, and that kind of allows me to get an idea as far as where you are as far as making a stance in the community as far as other orgs. But yeah, for me, it's been a kind of a cheat sheet of getting to know this space and this industry and this community, because everybody is on it. And it was just so easy for us at ESPAT to literally find Max. Hey, the Huntsmen are having a pro-am event around NBA All-Star. You go in and you kind of figure out, well, listen, I'm not going to fly somebody in for a pro-am event. Who's in the backyard over there, and you find Max, and within 10 minutes you kind of vet him and you see his work, and you can just you don't have to ask for a portfolio, and it's quite simple, and you kind of really just shoot from the hip. And I've always said the first rodeo is the hardest one, because you're taking a chance on everybody. You don't know if they're going to be on time. You don't know if they're going to deliver the assets, back to us. The quality may look nice on their personal site, but when they get there, do they have the right kit? So, for us, it's been kind of interesting just going on the first go around. And once you have that first audition, it's kind of smooth sailing from there. But of course, we've lost Max as a freelancer, so which is a good problem for Max. But cool. So let's go to some of the, speaking of Twitter and the community, like, who you guys big fans of? Let me turn to Max. Photography wise, videography wise, anybody in our space that you've really, really have come to appreciate their work.
Man, there's so many people. I think in the general esports industry, someone I'm a huge fan of, and I think a lot of people, I know Owen has the same opinion, a lot of other people do, but Skylar Johnson. If you work in esports, everyone knows Skylar Johnson. Sure. Founded NV way back then. Used to be a pro COD player. Now he's done things like, he found Paper Crowns, which is a leading creative agency. He's founded Control, which I'm a part of, and he's just been such a huge inspiration to me. He's so accomplished, and I just want to be like him. When we went to CWL Anaheim in 2019, we met him and we kind of just talked to him, and he was super pumped to meet us, and he was talking about esports and everything that he wants to do and everything that he sees with the industry. And ever since then, he's been such an inspiration to me. He's helped me out personally a ton, and he's just such a nice guy. Other people, it's super cliche at this point in the design industry, but George works for 100 Thieves. George Nowak, he's a great guy. He's absolutely popped off in the past year since joining 100 Thieves. He's gained a massive following, and he's helping out the industry. These younger kids who don't really know a lot what they're doing, he's helping them a lot with building a portfolio and how to get a job in esports, how to look professional on social media and everything. And he's doing an awesome job. Other people that are, I guess, are more low key. There's so many actual industry workers that are on Twitter and even off of Twitter that have such a little following, but they do such a good job. A lot of community managers I follow, like Lindsay, she does social stuff for NV and Dallas Fuel and stuff. She does a really good job. And there's a lot of people that deserve a lot more praise for what they do, and they just don't get it. They don't have the clout on Twitter, which really doesn't matter.
Sure.
Owen just kind of talked about that. Clout isn't really, it's cool to have, but at the end of the day, it's more important to, be a good worker, be successful, than it is to have clout. And I think that these industry workers have really just shown that you do not need any sort of clout to be successful in the industry. I tweeted this the other day, but some of the most successful people in the industry do not even use social media. They kind of, they work from the shadows, they work behind the scenes, and they get the job done. They do incredible work, and no one except for really their coworkers and their friends know who they are, and they don't really care about that. Which that's something that I can admire, because even though I said clout isn't that important, I still I care. I like having Twitter followers. I like people interacting with my tweets. I think it's kind of hard for someone to say that they don't like that, but if you can get past that and you can realize that clout just doesn't matter, it's more about your skill. and how you interact with other people. I think those are the people that we should be like looking up to, not these people that have like 50,000 Twitter followers and all they do is tweet, like this tweet and I'll follow you, or just these impression tweets that literally mean nothing. They have no substance and it just gets people to follow them. Like, oh, this guy, he's got 50K Twitter followers. He's got to be super successful. And a lot of times they don't really do anything. They just sit on Twitter and they just gain followers. So those are not the people that you want to look up to. The people that you want to look up to are those who have a job and are making money and actually like know about the industry.
No, I hear you on that. I mean, I think sometimes there's a lot of bullshit that just gets posted, and you see folks just looking for a reaction, where there's no execution. It's just look at me, and it's kind of nonsense at the end of the day. Owen, do you see that as well? Is that any pet peeve of yours? Now, we're not here to judge other people, but do you see sometimes it's more like people going through FOMO, and they're like, all right, Max just landed at Space Station. Owen is doing his thing. I'm just calling you two guys out for the sake of this conversation. But do you see that FOMO being created? And it's like, if I don't put something out, I'm going to be literally like, it's going to be a long, long day here.
Yeah. I mean, I think people really, at least in terms of being a creative in esports, they don't fully understand the mechanism in which Twitter clout correlates to success, because it's very easy to view like followers as like an indicator of status in the community. That's like a natural connection to make, but unless you're an influencer or something, or you're a player, or you're like an artist, which I actually do think there's a distinction between artist and designer in this case. Like followers and Twitter clout only matters insofar as it gives you connections and, as bad as it sounds, money. Like really, It's just a vehicle to make money. It is not the end result. Unfortunately, I think it's partly because the esports creative scene, it's usually filled with younger people. And obviously me being 17, I can't really like look down on them for that. But it's hard to deny that typically a younger person will not have that life perspective required to make that judgment call. So, I mean, honestly, I do think people should value, like Max said, industry success a little more over Twitter followers. And it's important to differentiate between the two, because not only are they not directly linked, but it might not even be a stretch to say that sometimes the designers with the most Twitter followers are not as successful as someone with less Twitter followers. And like, I can think of a few examples off the top of my head. Obviously, I don't want to call anyone out. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to put anyone down. But there are certain role models in the community who probably shouldn't be role models, because they're not like people view them. They're like, oh man, I wish I was that guy. But really, that's not what you should be doing. You should be looking at like Joe Schmo, who's the creative director for wherever. And that's the guy you want to be if you're a designer in esports. You don't want to have 25,000 meaningless Twitter followers. If you're not making anything with that, you might as well not have it.
Yeah. Let me get to some of a wish list if I had to give you guys an opportunity. And I'm sure you guys have autonomous roles, but starting with Max, like what would be kind of a dream kind of creative piece that you would love to do? No budget attached. I mean, a budget attached, but unlimited budget. Like, just put your creative hat on with the team. What would you love to put together?
I'd love to work on like a long form esports documentary, something like 100 Thieves does with the Heist, or United does with the Ascent. A lot of these big teams, they have like documentary series where they'll follow around their league team or their COD team or throughout the season and kind of document what goes through their heads and stuff. And I would love to work on like a huge project like that, just because you work with a big team, everyone's doing something, and at the end you get this really like awesome creative piece that is oftentimes like unmatched. Like I watched the other day, Optic, they put out the first episode of like, like the rebuilding of Optic and stuff. And I watched that and I was just like, this is so cool. Like I really want to be able to do something like this. So I think, yeah, my dream creative piece would probably be to work on a super long form, like docu series in esports.
Love it. I'm a big fan of that. What about you, Owen?
I would say probably I kind of got a chance to do this with the EG 3.0, but I'd probably want to be, at least in my ideal scenario, like the art director, creative director of a tier 1 org, and I'd want to be the one doing the whole branding thing. And maybe this is overconfident, but I anticipate that will be doable within the next few years. So I think that's probably the direction I'm going here. I'm aiming to make that a reality someday, just like getting to the top of a T1 org chain of command in terms of creative, and then handling all the brand stuff. And like I said, I did get a chance to do that kind of with EG 3.0, but I mostly just focus on the social stuff. I wish I could take a bigger role in things like the brand messaging and just like the logo and all that stuff. That's pretty much my dream scenario.
Yeah. I got to ask you, when do you actually pay attention to branding outside of esports, like Fortune 100 companies, right? Always kind of flirting with changing their brand. I mean, how much of a fan are you what's happening outside our industry?
Well, I definitely don't monitor it as much, although it does come up. Like I think it was GM, like General Motors, that changed their logo recently, and it was, quite frankly, just abysmal. It was really bad, and I had to say something. I can't just let this slide. And it's funny because I think my quote tweet, it was a tweet from like the Detroit Times or something talking about it. My quote tweet got almost as many likes as the original tweet, and I mean that's kind of a shameless flex.
Let me put you on the spot. I mean, who do you like in our industry? Like which orgs are sexy? Which pop?
I will say, obviously, 100 Thieves. That's kind of obvious. Everyone loves the 100 Thieves design team. I do think the Fnatic design team is underrated. People do not give Fnatic enough credit. The logo's great. Their branding's great. Their merch has even been improving. I own Fnatic merch. Like that's impressive. I own 100 Thieves. EG, obviously, because I got it for free, and then Fnatic. That's all I have in my closet in terms of.
I was on their team store the other day. I can't lie. Full disclosure.
Yeah, I mean they had this one drop. I forget. It was they collabed with this guy. What's his name? I think Dan Barkle. I think it's his name. He's a really, really great designer. He's not even an esports designer. And it's funny because I'm like now a fan of his work, and now I own one of his shirts because he worked with Fnatic. And I mean, I literally don't know who's the one pulling the strings, like who the top dog in the Fnatic design team is that's like guiding this forward. But whoever that is, if you're watching this, you're doing a damn good job, because I mean, Fnatic is honestly like they don't get enough credit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a fan of any org per se. So I actually go by the name of the team, and then I go right to their logo, and then I'll spend $100 in the store and just grab a hat, grab a hoodie or something. So like it does translate into revenue, no matter which way you slice it. Max, who are you a fan of as far as logo, branding, merch?
For branding, I really like Team Heretics. They're a Spanish org.
Yep.
And they're one of their designers, Bora. I think his design style is super unique. Not a lot of people know about him because he is Spanish, so a lot of like the main NA community doesn't really know who he is, but I think his work is really good. I'm just looking at it right now. Like some of his stuff that he did for like the 2020 branding for Heretics is really, really cool, super innovative. A lot of esports orgs, even a lot of like top tier esports orgs, they kind of follow the same trend and layout and style of design. And I think it gets really, really overdone and boring very quickly. So it's always a breath of fresh air to see people that are just trying something out, even if it doesn't end up being super like successful and it's not like crazy, like style wise. I think just seeing different types of designs and seeing people try something new instead of just following the same cookie cutter layout is really cool. So I like Heretics. I also, for merch, I don't own any, but Team Liquid. Liquid has really good stuff. Damien Estrada, who works for Liquid, he is super talented, super successful. I love all the stuff that they do. Yeah, I don't really own a lot of esports merch, pretty much just SSG and then a 100 Thieves hoodie. But if I were to buy something, I probably would end up buying something from Fanatics. I do like Fanatic stuff that Owen has, and as well as Liquid. I think Liquid has some cool jerseys and some cool merch that they do.
And are you following the rebrand with Hector in your backyard in Chicago and Call of Duty?
Yeah, I was never really a huge Optic fan. I never really got into the competitive pro side of Call of Duty, but since the CDL started, I've started following it a bit more. Owen and we actually went to the first CDL event that they had at the beginning of 2020 in Minnesota. And ever since then, I've started following it a bit more. I've worked with some of the teams, and it was really nice to see Optic come back. 'Cause I mean, Optic is literally like a staple of the esports industry. Like when you think of the first like big teams, you think of like Optic and FaZe. Like those are like back in the day, it was Optic versus FaZe and stuff like that. And I think when Optic left, or not when they left, but like when Hector sold the IP, like it was just a huge hit to the industry. People like were sad about it, and they did a really good job with Huntsman, building that fan base back. And I think with Optic coming back, I think that was like crazy for the industry. People love it, and now there's like this actual name Optic that people can root for. I think their branding is pretty good. Everything that they've done, I've liked so far for the most part. Aaron Create, he works for them. I think he did a pretty good job with the stuff that they have. So yeah, I'm excited to see them back. Excited to see what they do this season for the CDL.
Likewise, let's get rocking and rolling. All right, so this is the point of the show where we get to find out really what kind of company you guys like to keep. And again, this is 2 dinner guests. Could be anybody, somebody in your circle, famous actor, celebrity, rock star, rapper, you name it, designer, photographer, you name it. So let me start with Owen. You've had a couple of days to kind of figure this one out. 2 dinner guests at Owen Roe's house.
Elon Musk, by far. I'm a major Elon Musk fan.
You're not going to reach him on Twitter anymore, so I don't know how
well, okay. Well, I'll figure it out somehow,
Yeah.
Elon's coming to dinner. I don't know who else, though. I mean, honestly, like, I don't really have, like, role models necessarily. Although,
and I hate that term just for the record, but I hear you.
Yeah. Elon is the one person that I can, like, genuinely look up to. I don't really have, like I said, like famous people to me. I guess, you know what? I'll throw a curveball here. Elon Musk and Kanye West, okay? I'll have Kanye and Elon at my house for dinner. That would be a fun night.
Interesting. Love it. What about you, Max?
So one person I would love, I guess if this is people that are no longer alive, I would love to have dinner with Juice WRLD, just because Juice WRLD's like one of my favorite artists of all time. I love his music. Very sad that he's no longer with us. I think for my second one, it's not anyone in our industry. I guess someone else who's also deceased, but Ron Santo, he played for the Cubs. He's a huge legend in Chicago.
Yeah,
I'm a big Cubs fan, so I would love to just sit down and talk with Ron Santo. I remember when I was younger, just listening to like radios, like the games and stuff at night, and just like he was such like an awesome person. I remember like the night that he found out that he died, and it was, even when I was like super young, I was like, this is a huge loss, and I would just love to talk with him about the Cubs and his time playing and his time broadcasting, and it would just be cool to talk to him for a little bit.
You got to let me know, where were you when they won the World Series and how, the shenanigans, and how much trouble did you get into?
So I was just in my living room with my family. I remember exactly I remember the rain delay. I was literally just sitting on my couch with my face in the cushions. I was like, I want this to end. Like, please come back. Just please do this.
And you're spoiled. I mean, there's like a 75-year-old, aging senior citizen that never saw them win, and you kind of won at a young age.
Yeah, and I remember just watching it, and I remember on like the last play, I was recording. I had my in high school they gave everyone like iPads, and so I had my school iPad. I was literally standing there recording with my iPad as they made the last out, and I literally just screamed so loud. I'm pretty sure it was in Chicago. I'm pretty sure it was like raining. It had recently rained. I literally ran outside in my bare feet and literally ran up and down the street screaming. I was so happy. The next day, everything was more insane. I went to the like many of my friends skipped school. We went to the parade in the city, and that was one of the most insane experiences of my life. The amount of people there was nothing like I've never seen more. I've never been anywhere with more people congested in like one area in my life, and that was just. I'm so like grateful that I was able to experience that in my lifetime, because I know there's people who, they never got to see Cubs win a World Series and stuff like that. And I will always remember like where I was, like what I was doing, like what I was feeling that time. And even now, like every once in a while, I'll go back and I'll watch like Cubs, 2016 postseason highlights and everything. And I'm not someone to get super emotional. Like I don't cry easy at all. But when I watch like the Cubs highlights, like I tear up, because that was I've been a huge Cubs fan my entire life, and just growing up and seeing them struggle and stuff, and then finally seeing like, oh, there's this light at the end of the tunnel. They're rebuilding and they become super successful. Like that was something just absolutely huge in my life, and I'm super glad that I was able to see it.
Yeah, you guys live in a great sports city. I'm going to age myself a little bit. So in 1984, before you guys got the lights in Wrigley, WGN, I used to get that channel in New York. So for me, it was like, as a baseball fan, it was free baseball. I'm a Yankee fan, but it was only day games at home. So you could watch the Cubs in the day and the Yankees at night. So I kind of became really, really acclimated with the 84 team that ended up losing in the NLCS to the Padres. And then obviously, they had a nice little opportunity before, and I drawn a blank, the infamous fan that dropped the ball, actually the Moises Alou play.
Oh, Steve Bartman.
Steve Bartman. And let me speaking of documentaries, tell me you've seen that 30 for 30 on Bartman.
Yeah.
ESPN. Yeah, that's just and you guys have kind of brought him back with open arms. I mean, I don't think that was on the agenda when he went to the game that night.
Definitely not.
But he got famous for all the wrong reasons. So good to know. Cubs have definitely brought some joy back to Chicago, and you guys have been spoiled Bulls, and the Bears have been pretty good back in the heyday. Yeah. Cool. But listen, man, I want to thank you guys. Oh, first, social. Let us all know so you guys can get to 20,000, 30,000 followers. How do we find Max, and how do we find Owen? Max, where do we find you on Twitter?
So my @ is by Max C BY, and then Max and then C. Pretty much the only social that I use at this point. I just want to shout out like we have like this small friend group on Twitter. We have like this little group chat, and there's probably like 15, 16 people in there. And these like the people in that chat are some of my closest friends in the industry. They've helped me. They've helped like numerous people in the chat have literally gotten jobs because they're in that chat, because they know someone that's in that chat. And I think that everyone in there, they deserve infinite success. And I'm glad pretty much everyone in that chat has been super successful in the industry. And I'm just glad, that they're there. Like George Nowak, I talked about him. Typo, creative director for Dignitas. There's a bunch of people in that chat that are awesome, and I love every one of them. So yeah.
Owen, where do we find you?
My handle on pretty much everything is just Owen M. Roe. And I also got to take a moment to shout out the Gamosphere, which is the group chat in question there. Everyone there's awesome. You should follow them too, like Typo, like Max said, Pressure, George, of course, all leading the industry. So go follow them as well.
Well, let's do this, man. Let's make 2021 a really fun and banging year. So appreciate you guys coming on again. Episode 11, Beyond the Frame. I want to thank Max Chan, Owen Roe from Hopping On, live from Chicago and cold Minnesota as well. Owen, do your homework. I don't want to hear any. All right.
No promises.
17. Hey, listen, my son is 14. I mean, in 3 years, I really hope that he, have some sort of career path like you got going on. So shit, man, kudos to you, man, and Max as well. I mean, really fired up as far as the future of our industry. As far as the creative space, it's really, really at a great moment. So again, thanks for coming on, and again, be well, stay safe, and talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.